All right, fantastic. So, yeah, we've got a really exciting topic for everybody today. We're going to be talking about using scripts to enhance your security and also some other operational benefits and different ways that you can use them and also the vicarious approach to scripting. Today's presentation is going to be given by myself, Ryan Patton, Solution Architect Team Lead for Vicarious here in North America. We also have a guest star, Nahuel. Nahuel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Well, hello, Ryan. It's just a pleasure to be here with you, presenting our scripting in Shine, the way we face this problem and how we solve it. I'm part of the Vicarious Research team. We are the ones behind the CV of the week, behind the patch list, the Microsoft Thursday patch, the brief. We are the ones behind the scripting in Shine, just loading it with the quantity and quality that right now has and constantly improving it. So yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone is using Vicarious today in their environment or has checked out vSociety, chances are if you've used some of the scripts there, you probably have Noel to thank for that. He's contributed quite a lot and is constantly researching new and emerging threats and different ways to detect them and protect your environment against them. So I think he's going to have a really interesting point of view and some great expertise to share with us all today. All right. So quick topic overview. Again, like we talked about, we're pretty much just going to be talking about scripts, some of the things that we've seen in the wild, some of the feedback we've heard from our customers, and different ways that they're using scripts and how it's benefiting them, and again, both from a security perspective as well as for some operational things, app deployment, and all sorts of really exciting stuff. If you do have any questions, we've got a couple moderators here as well, and we'll try to save some time towards the end to cover those. So just feel free to drop that in the chat, and yeah, we'd love to see what kind of questions you have. So we've kind of broken this down into a couple different sections. First is going to be the value of scripting. What are some of the different use cases that we've seen? Where can it really be a good fit? Where have people not used scripts where maybe they can, do something a little bit more simply had they used a script, or where can they potentially apply a fix in their environment where it might be difficult to do so otherwise, maybe more manual or requiring, getting in front of the keyboard even on that particular machine. So maybe a script allows them to apply that fix remotely in some cases. So we're going to talk about some of the different use cases again that we've seen. Then we're going to be covering the vicarious approach to scripting, some of the areas that we've been focusing on in the last year. We really do see the value in this, and we do also understand that a lot of especially smaller customers. If you joined our last webinar, we spoke about small and medium businesses with continuous threat exposure management, and how we can achieve that sort of thing in a small environment. And taking some of those same principles we discussed there, the vicarious approach is that we're providing a lot of the scripts for you so that it's pretty much one click and you can go and deploy that into your environment. You'll probably want to test it, and we'll cover some of that as well. But again, we want to try to make sure that folks that might not have access to a threat researcher such as Noel can utilize some of the same things that he's providing in the platform here. And then finally, we've got some examples. So just kind of tying everything together, we're going to look at a few cases that we used some scripts, and if we have some time, we might even go into a quick demo. So that's a little bit about that. And with that, let's talk about the value. So I kind of already touched on a few cases, but resource limitations, kind of jumps back again to that SMB sort of model where you might not have the resources to dedicate to researching every single vulnerability. It's something we hear where customers might switch to our tool, is that they're using a tool which is scanning their vulnerabilities, but it's just so much data to parse through and try to understand how they can deploy these fixes, and then getting into sort of the logistics of developing a script that works for the needs of their environment. Maybe they've got some sort of custom implementation or something similar that makes it more difficult than standard. So there's just a lot of consideration, and again, we find a lot of teams don't necessarily have access to some of the individuals that allow that process to happen. That they don't have a dedicated threat researcher or developer or someone who's proficient in PowerShell or Python or Bash or any other language that would help to facilitate that. It's also a great way, even if you're a larger organization who does have those things, scripts are a great way to amplify the actions that those teams are providing. You can deploy something at scale, something that's repeatable or might be very manual. You can automate through a script. So there's quite a lot of benefit in terms of getting more output out of whatever level of resource that you have access to. In terms of multiple console operations, this is something that we see quite often. Organizations, especially today, they're in very distributed workloads across many different sites and working from home, cloud, colo, on-prem, multiple, cloud instances, multiple domains, all of these different things. So being able to, again, sort of amplify that remediation potentially or whatever the script is doing across that entire environment with a single click in some cases, again, allows you to deliver that at scale, which is otherwise not necessarily possible. And then, this is kind of an ongoing battle. It's not something that we can, deploy once and be done with it. New vulnerabilities are coming out, new tasks are needing to take place. So, the fact that we can take one script to automate that process and get everything baselined to let's say, a specific remediation in place, we can then modify that script for a future vulnerability or for a future task which might be similar, so that we can maintain the environment much more effectively. So those are some of the different value propositions that we see with our customers' environments. There's of course many more, but these were a few that we wanted to go ahead and highlight.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add here is that we brought these problems mainly because these are not isolated problems. For example, let's say multiple console operations. It usually requires more resources, more resources, more people, and when we bring those resources, we require more constant maintenance that requires multiple console operations that require more resources. And yeah, these are not isolated problems, and that's why we brought them here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do see, up at the top there, the kind of the title of this slide is that many vulnerabilities are not patchable. Some may require a configuration change in addition to a patch, or maybe there is no patch and the only fix that the vendor recommends is a configuration change of some kind. And that's really where, in the security context, scripting is going to be a great resource for your team. All right, so we'll go ahead and move along here. So how that's kind of the problem, and what is the solution to that with scripts? So the consistency and standardization. Again, we can kind of test out a script in a dev environment. Testing is going to be a large portion of that, especially in sort of this renaissance of AI that we're kind of currently in. Again, if you don't have access to a dedicated threat researcher or developer for this type of thing, you might turn to AI, and then especially you would want to test out those scripts in a sandbox environment that's not going to affect production, because you don't know exactly the components of that. So having that consistency and standardization, once that testing has been done and you have confirmed that it has the desired effect, you can use that script and package it in a way that it gets delivered to the entire environment, and you have that level of assurance that everything has had that baseline applied to it, as I mentioned in the previous slide. Operational efficiency, I think, is pretty straightforward. Again, we talked about kind of resource utilization and how we can use scripts to reduce that impact that it might have on some more manual tasks. But again, it's going to allow you to kind of scale that up. You would be able to perform that same task regardless if it's on a machine that's working from home, if it's in the cloud, if it's in the office there through some of the remote deployment tools as well. So again, once you have that kind of baseline and tested, you can deploy that script rapidly in a very repeatable way. And that kind of feeds into the scalability and simplicity. Creating scripts, it can be a little bit challenging at first. And again, we're going to get into the vicarious approach. Again, maybe you don't have someone on the team who's familiar with, let's say, PowerShell. If you've got a lot of Windows systems, that can be very useful for doing things like registry changes, which might be required for mitigating a vulnerability. But with the vicarious approach, which again we're going to get into here in a moment, and how we help to further solve this problem, we give you kind of a starting point. We give you something that you can run in your environment, and a lot of times you can just use it as is. You may need to modify it, but again, we're going to touch on that in a couple minutes. And yeah, with that, let's jump right into the vicarious approach. So I want to turn things over to Nahuel. Nahuel, given your experience and what you see with the scripting engine and how it's evolved over the last year or so, what are some of the things that you've seen, how we've been able to help customers secure their environments using the scripting engine?
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, there is mainly these 3 points that I want to talk about, that I want to highlight. The first one is that we, as you say, in the last year, we started focusing our work on the scripts, because it's a really good way to expand the BRX use cases. It's not anymore about patch management or patchless protection. We have like a full suite of public scripts that provides our users to a lot of different functionalities, starting from security. Of course, we have scripts that will aid our users with software configurations, with technical configurations on their systems. Also for auditing, they can check for their users or the updates that have been installed on the system. They can even roll back from updates. They can expand the use cases of VRX, not only for security, for ID teams, and even for other use cases that, yeah, it's only about the limits that their imagination can do. Let's start with the first point, full set of public scripts. We have right now, in the slide, say 300 scripts, but right now we have around 350 scripts. There is a constantly increasing public library, and the question that you may ask is how this public library is increasing. What are the sources? Well, we have mainly 3 different sources. We have BunchGPT is the AI that Vicarious have. We have also vSociety is our social media where users can upload their scripts that will detect and mitigate a specific CVE, and they will receive a commission for it. There is a full team of researchers that are uploading constantly scripts to our social media, to vSociety. And there is also, of course, the research team. I have to stop there a minute, because our research team is constantly focusing mainly on the user feedback, on the client feedback. We hear about what they need, and we try to provide them with solutions. Sometimes there is specific solutions for a specific client, but then we go a step backward and say, okay, how can we make this generic? How can we make this in a way that all of our users can take advantage of the script that we just made? And we then upload it, we try it, we have like you said before, we have a laboratory, a sandbox laboratory. We tried it, we verify it, and we just upload it to the public library, so every one of our users can access it. It doesn't matter if their tenant is new, they have a new dashboard, or they have different tenants for their I don't know, for the different teams on the company. It doesn't matter. They will all have the access to the more than 300 scripts of the public library. Also, the other part that is very important is that we have native PowerShell, Bash, and Batch execution. These are three scripting languages that are used a lot right now. If you go to GitHub and search for PowerShell, search for Bash, you will find a lot of scripts related to security, from offensive security to defensive, preventive, incident response. So it is really important to be able to provide a robust support for executing these scripts. And finally, one of the main things that not only the scripting shine, but across all VRX, we have the ability to deploy a patch, to deploy reports, to deploy different activities. And it is not less on the script side. We have the ability to deploy to across multiple assets, group of assets, and it will automatically detect if the system, if Windows is a Windows, then execute the PowerShell version of the script. If it's a Linux version or a Mac version, a Mac system, then execute the Bash and the corresponding language. So yeah, that's one of the best parts.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we hear, and I'm glad you brought that up. That coverage of multiple operating systems in the same tool definitely helps to make sure you have the full coverage of your environment if you do happen to have a sort of mixed fleet with multiple OSs, and the fact that we automatically detect the relevant language if it is a vulnerability that you're trying to remediate that, let's say, affects both Windows and Mac systems, or Windows and Linux, or any combination of those for that matter. Assuming that the script exists in our system for each of those, it'll automatically determine which one is relevant for that machine. So that's definitely really handy to just be able to rely on that and not have to think too much about it. Also, the coverage of the different languages, there's even more CMD we cover natively, and we can even run things like Python scripts, even though it's not currently native in the platform in the sense that PowerShell and Bash and those sorts of languages are. What we can do is we can save that Python file, upload it to the dashboard, and then we can run that on the machine remotely by, basically downloading the script and calling it that way using CMD or PowerShell or one of the native languages, basically. So there's really quite a lot of flexibility. I think is a great point, and also that suite of public scripts is growing all the time. And we're going to talk actually in just a moment here about vSociety. So let's go on and talk about that a little bit more. So Nahuel, you mentioned that we have the this community of threat researchers and cybersecurity professionals and IT professionals who are contributing some scripts. So can you talk a little bit more about how this has grown and some of the highlights that we've seen out of it?
Yeah. Well, probably a lot of people have already seen that we always try to cover one of the trending vulnerabilities. We call it the CVE of the week. And what we do with that is that we try to provide a solution, a detection script, and a mitigation or remediation script. And the goal is always it is not always possible, but the goal is always try to mitigate a vulnerability without patching. That's our final goal, and that only can be achieved on a quick way, on a fast way, with the community-driven threat detection. We can only achieve it with a community that is always researching, that is always trying to communicate between them, trying to find the best way to mitigate, to remedy the vulnerability without patching. I think that's the best challenge, and it's always our final goal, to be the first responders and also the ones that provide the best quality when trying to mitigate or remediate a vulnerability. So yeah, rapid response, collaboration, that's one of the main points when we talk about vSociety. We have a team of researchers that send me. They upload their script to by society, and I will review them. We have like a really a strong guideline where they have to provide proof that the script works. They had to provide a video where the script is working, where they execute the script in a lab. Then I will review it. I will review the content. I will review the code. I will review that is nothing malicious, that is nothing that could hurt any of our system. Then we will try it on the sandbox or corresponding laboratory. If it works, perfect. We send it to the scripting and shine to the scripting library. And that's one of the main ways that we have, and we increase our quantity on the script and shine.
Yeah, some good points. Definitely anything that's community driven, is you always want to make sure that you know exactly what you're running in a production environment. So that manual testing and approval process is definitely something that we find is key before we can kind of trust that script and make sure that we're providing something of value to our customers and something that's safe and secure. Also, the fact that this is as you mentioned earlier, something where they're provided a commission. A lot of the scripts are provided. There's repeat users there, so it's I don't have a number in front of me, but I'd be curious to see how many are repeat versus new folks joining and contributing. But as we are working with the same people for longer periods, we kind of can understand their work a bit better. Again, not to say that's any replacement for the testing process, but does give us some additional degree of comfort for those repeat contributors there.
Totally.
Cool. So let's talk about a couple kind of real world problems, and we're actually going to get into some examples here in just a moment. But there's been some new developments with kind of playbooks and things like that. So Nahuel, why don't you share a little bit for everybody here about that?
Yeah, well, playbooks is something that when our clients listen to it, they really like it. They really enjoy the idea, and it's something that we are constantly working on because I think it's the next step. Definitely, we are calling it as strategies, and the goal is to provide our users with a set of scripts that aim to perform and a specific action. For example, let's say incident response. So you will be able to go to the dashboard and select to incident response tag, and that will be your playbook. That will be your ads strategy. So the playbook is a set of scripts with a defined goal. Let's say you want an example. We say audit hardware. So you select the audit hardware ads strategy, and you will have your set of scripts that will handle this playbook. And I think the most important thing here is that, as you previously say on the beginning of the session, that most of the teams don't have like a dedicated research team to develop their scripts, to develop their playbooks. They may have a security team, but they don't have the time to dedicate to create a playbook for hardening, for incident response, for I don't know, for auditing. They don't have the time. So we provide them with these sets of playbook of scripts that they can execute on all their systems.
Yeah, amazing. There can definitely be some cases where maybe it's the operations needed in the script are different from one another, so it can make sense to split them out into different components or different scripts altogether. But it sounds like the playbooks are basically tying those into an overarching set of scripts that you can run to achieve some sort of goal. Maybe you want to understand some more information about the hardware of the device, maybe see if it's got an active warranty on it on a laptop, let's say, or get some other specs to see if it's able to run a new application you're planning to push out, or whatever it might be. Or in the case of incident response is another great one. Maybe you want to see if a lot of files were modified around the same time, which is a telltale sign of encryption, and also to perform some system hardening like the MITRE frameworks and several others. So yeah, all really good points there. And we kind of already talked about the early response and how we have a couple different feeds of where we're getting these scripts from, as well as the research team in the previous slides. But yeah, the playbooks is certainly very interesting, and I think something that there's a lot of room to even build on top of what we currently have today. So that's also fantastic.
What we call the final frontier, what that really matters, that is the real examples, the real use cases that our user have been taking value from. Right, Ryan, you're back?
I'm back. Yeah, sorry for that interruption, but it sounds like you're able to pick up. So yeah, I'm excited to hear about some of the use cases that you've seen.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Well, expanded real world use cases. You wanna start or?
Sure. Yeah. So we kind of touched on this with the playbooks a little bit, and how we can use scripts to some of these common goals. One that I've seen that I think is pretty interesting. It's not necessarily security related, but it could kind of fall into that third category. We had a customer who has hundreds, if not thousands, of retail stores, and they wanted to make sure that all of the critical services were running on some of their machines for each store in the morning. So they were running a script which basically listed all of the key services and whether or not they were stopped, and would go ahead and automatically start them. So again, it's not necessarily security related, but more just kind of maintaining operational key operational items there. So I thought that was a pretty interesting use case. They also have a report that's set to run, so they get an email every morning to see if any were stopped, if they were started. So it really helps them to do that at scale. If that was something they were doing manually, it would be a nightmare. So but yeah, apart from that, on the security side, we've certainly seen quite a few. Nahuel, do you have any examples in mind that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I think what we really have, for example, in the first 2 points when we talk about server hardening or incident response, there is often a lot of worries on this side. Like most of the teams, as we probably say, don't have a security team or a research team that is developing them scripts or developing them or checking them for compliance, right? We are always trying to improve on that side because the clients are always asking for more security measures, security compliance that we can provide. So server hardening is one of the ways that we have a lot of scripts right now on the scripting engine, on the scripting public library. If you go and access, you will see that we have hardening for Windows Server, hardening for Linux. If you want to be aware or be secure against some typical privilege escalation on Linux system, you can check for sudo, check for sudo users, check for sudo version, and you can start doing this compliance checking and that we call risk assessment, and you can then start hardening. And that's something that our users that they are mostly really worried about security are constantly checking on this for incident response, for server hardening.
Yeah, hardening is definitely an interesting one. We're actually getting geared up to add a new feature in the platform pretty soon around CIS benchmarks and some other frameworks for hardening and for various industry regulations as well. So CIS is a great example of some of those different ways to understand if you're following best practices and how compliant a machine is against the CIS benchmarks, and then go ahead and apply some of those recommendations, maybe a password length or something along those lines, and that will all be powered by scripting on the back end. with some, nice reporting and things like that, of course, as well. So yeah, that's definitely a really popular one. And I think it aligns with a lot of organizational security goals as well, to kind of prevent being in that incident response scenario in the first place, a more proactive sort of approach.
Totally. And as Ryan was saying, we also try to expand the use cases. For example, when we try to provide audit scripts, we have a lot of users that use a lot of different applications for making auditing hardware, auditing system. And this happens a lot, that our clients are really happy because we have like a strong set of scripts that provide them with really nice reports on hardware, on system, on different, even on different how do you say it, on different kind of ways of outputs. We have the CSV, or we have the table side, as long as you desire.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some things that we get asked which might not necessarily fall into the core scope of vulnerability management, or what I would consider to be the core scope of vulnerability management. And the great thing is, even if the platform isn't necessarily designed to do that natively, the scripting engine that we have gives us the flexibility to pull some of that data and then create reports based off of that. So even for us, that allows us to cover some use cases that we probably wouldn't be able to without it. So it really does give quite a lot of flexibility, and we're big fans.
Yeah, I think that's the word, flexibility. And also the other word I use a lot on my workshop, on my trainings, are imagination. We talk about that a lot. I think that the limit on the scripting engine is put by our users. Is put by what you can do, what you can imagine you can do. We can provide you with samples. You can extract event logs and system info. You can enforce compliance standards, as Ryan was saying just before, that we can provide you with. We are about to release a feature on sys compliance, and you then enforce those compliance standards, and that's great. We can also provide you with a set of quick incident response, and that's awesome too. But your imagination is the limit. What you can do with all these scripts, with all this, and with this strong engine, with this limitless engine, is just what the user can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great segue, by the way. Yeah, it's something that as you're using more and seeing more scripts. So again, go over, check out vSociety, check out some of the scripts that we have in our public library. You start to get more ideas about what's possible, and you're always learning new things. There's so many interesting projects and things like that on GitHub, and again, as I mentioned earlier, with AI now. So yeah, if you haven't used it in the past or been apprehensive, there's never really been a better time. And then again, pretty soon you're going to be thinking about some pretty intricate and complex things, and again, definitely imagination is the limit.
Awesome. Well, that's all. That's all for today. We were planning to make a little demo, but we had no time right now. I think we have to leave that for our next webinar, maybe.
Part two.
With the part two. Well, there is any questions? Let me check. Maybe.
While we're waiting for audience questions, I have a question. So, you mentioned earlier that some of the CVE of the week gets chosen by feedback. So how can people reach out to you, and how can they get a CVE that might be troubling them? How can they have you look into that?
Well, right now there is two different ways. I think there is two different ways. Sometimes there is like this direct contact to me. You can contact me by my email or by my even my LinkedIn, or you can contact your support if you are a client of VRX, of the Vicarious, and you can contact the support and request your scripts, and we'll handle it properly.
Sounds great. And if there aren't any that are requested, is this something that how are you choosing which one is the CV of the week? Is it you're just looking for what has the widest impact, or the and doesn't have a patch available, so a script would be a good candidate, or what is some of the methodology for choosing one?
Well, we try to always research on the most demanded ones. I think that's the word. I think we trying to always see what are the requests, what are the things that are worrying the social media, that our clients. Sometimes there is a specific request from some clients that they tell us, hey, did you see this CVE? Because I think it's maybe compliant with my system. Can you do something with it? And we do a quick response on it.
Yeah,
I think
amazing.
we have a question.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Misconfiguration improvements in the roadmap. Yeah, so we do have some misconfiguration scripts in the dashboard today, but it's definitely something that we're looking to expand on. So that actually is, I would say, directly related to our new XComply feature that we're calling it. CIS, as we mentioned, is going to be one of the first benchmarks which are going to be added as a part of that feature, but we do have plans to extend it to other benchmarks and frameworks and industry regulations, NIST CSF and HIPAA and PCI and sort of things like that. It's actually due to be released quite soon. It should be in production, I believe, this month for the CIS feature. So that's something that you'll be able to use to audit devices for their configuration, get a report on how compliant they are, and then also deploy that fix to the machine. So really the whole cycle, which is pretty much our DNA of making sure that we're not just finding the problem, we're fixing it. That's a great question. Thank you, Maher.
Yeah. Also, the research team is, as I say early, is constantly trying to find new scripts that are useful to our clients. We don't have the time to do a quick demo, but we have actually currently on the VRX scripting engine, we have 5 categories. There is security, software, configuration, and audit, and VRX. And these are the categories that not only allow us to organize the public library, but also allow to our users to know what kind of scripts are going to be keep adding. So yeah, there is a category that aims to fix configuration problems. So yeah, I think we can leave it here.
Awesome.
You have
Thanks.
our social media here, Peace Society, Vicarious. Ryan, you wanna
thanks everybody
say?
thanks a lot everyone for joining, for the questions, and for your time, and Nahuel as well for sharing, working really hard on supercharging our scripting, which is helping us to protect all of our customers, and also the community as well in V Society. So looking forward to a part 2 with maybe some live demos or something, so we can build on that. Yeah, thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody.